The banishment. The sky was burning with strange red light. The alien girl stood in the center of a great hall, her hands bound by glowing chains. Her people stood around her in silence, their eyes filled with cold anger. She could hear whispers, sharp and cruel, calling her traitor, liar, enemy. She wanted to scream that she was innocent, but her words had been ignored too many times. The leaders of her people, tall and armored, stepped forward. One of them raised a staff, and his voice thundered through the hall. "You have betrayed the trust of your kind. For this crime, you are banished, never to return." Her chest tightened, her breath quickened. She felt the floor beneath her tremble. A portal opened before her, swirling like a storm of shadows and fire. The girl's eyes widened in fear. She had heard of this place. A cursed world, a place where no one survived for long. Two guards dragged her forward. She struggled, begging them to stop. Her voice cracked. "Please, I did nothing. You have to believe me." But their faces were stone, without mercy. She looked around, searching for one kind face, one hand to help her. But everyone turned away. The guards pushed her into the portal. Her scream echoed as her body fell into endless darkness. The sound of her people faded, replaced by the roar of the storm inside the void. Her heart pounded. She could not breathe. The light swallowed her whole. When she opened her eyes, the world around her was chaos. The sky was black and full of flashing green lightning. The ground cracked and smoked beneath her feet. Strange shapes moved in the shadows, their eyes glowing in the dark. She gasped for air, but the air was heavy, poisoned. Her chest burned, and she coughed. She fell to her knees, her hands trembling. The glowing chains had vanished, but now she was alone. Completely alone. The girl stumbled forward, her legs weak. The ground was sharp, covered in black stones that cut her skin. A scream echoed in the distance, long and inhuman. She froze, her body shaking. The sound grew closer, and she realized something was hunting. She hid behind a rock, pressing her back against the cold surface. Her eyes searched the shadows. A huge beast walked past, its body covered in spikes. Its mouth opened, dripping with green liquid. The smell was so strong it made her sick. She held her breath, praying it would not see her. The beast sniffed the air, growled, then moved away into the storm. Her heart beat like a drum. She wanted to cry, but there were no tears left. She whispered to herself, "I cannot die. Not here, not like this." She forced her body to stand. She needed water. She needed shelter. Every step was heavy, but she pushed forward. The ground shook again. Thunder roared above her. Rain began to fall, but the drops burned her skin like acid. She covered her head with her arms, screaming as the rain sizzled against her flesh. She ran, stumbling, slipping on the rocks. She found a cave and rushed inside, collapsing to the floor. Her body shook with pain. She pressed her arms against her chest, breathing hard. The sound of the storm outside echoed like the growl of a monster. She closed her eyes, whispering, "Why me? Why did they send me here?" Darkness filled the cave, but she was too tired to move. Her mind replayed the last moments in the hall, the voices of her people. Her heart ached with anger, fear, and sorrow. But in that silence, another sound reached her ears. Footsteps. They were faint, careful, moving closer from the cave entrance. Her eyes opened wide, panic rising in her chest. She pressed her back against the wall, her breathing sharp and quick. Maybe it was another beast, maybe it had followed her. The shadow grew larger, blocking the cave light. She reached for a sharp rock near her hand. Her fingers shook, but she gripped it tightly, ready to fight. The footsteps grew louder, the shadow closer. And then she saw it. It was not a beast, not like the monsters outside. It was something else, something she had only heard of in old stories. A figure stood at the entrance, shaped like her, but different. 2 legs, 2 arms, a face hidden in the shadows. The storm lightning flashed behind him, revealing the truth. It was a human. Her heart stopped. Her mind froze. Her people had always spoken of humans as weak, as myths from forgotten times. But now, in this cursed world, one stood before her, real and alive. The girl stared, her breath caught in her throat, and in that moment, she realized her story was only beginning. The first encounter, the girl's heart pounded as she stared at the figure. Lightning flashed outside the cave, and for a moment she saw his face clearly. It was not like her people. His skin was pale compared to theirs, his eyes sharp and searching. He carried strange objects tied to his belt, shining metal tools that looked both simple and dangerous. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The girl held the sharp rock close, her body shaking. The human stood still, watching her, as if he was measuring her fear. His breathing was steady, calm, too calm for someone in this world. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and steady. "I saw you running in the storm." The girl flinched, her grip on the rock tightening. His words were strange, but somehow she understood them. Her people had once studied human languages long ago, though most had been forgotten. She whispered, her throat dry, "Stay away from me." The human raised his hand slowly, showing he was not holding a weapon. But his eyes never left hers, sharp and alert. He was ready to move if she attacked. The silence between them was heavy, broken only by the thunder outside. Then, a terrible sound echoed through the storm. A long, hunting cry, deep and angry. The girl's eyes widened. She recognized it. The beast from before had returned. The human's head turned slightly toward the sound, his jaw tightening. Without a word, he stepped into the cave and moved past her, closer to the entrance. The girl pressed against the wall, confused. Why wasn't he running? Why wasn't he hiding? He crouched low, pulling a strange object from his belt. It was not a blade, not like the weapons of her people. It looked simple, just a stick of metal with sharp edges he had carved himself. Yet the way he held it told her he had used it many times. The beast's shadow grew outside the cave, massive and ugly. Its glowing eyes searched the darkness. Its claws scraped against the rocks. The girl trembled, clutching her stone tighter. She wanted to run deeper into the cave, but her body would not move. The human did not hide. He waited, silent as stone. The beast roared and lunged into the cave. In a flash of motion, the human attacked. He rolled to the side, driving his weapon into the beast's neck. The creature shrieked, its green blood spraying against the cave walls. The girl cried out in shock, covering her face. But the human was not finished. He leapt onto the beast's back, holding tight as it thrashed. He struck again and again with fierce strength. Finally, the creature collapsed, its body shaking before it went still. Silence returned, broken only by the sound of the storm. The girl's eyes were wide with fear and disbelief. The human stepped back, breathing heavily, his arms smeared with green blood. He looked at her, his voice calm, though his chest rose and fell. "You shouldn't be out there alone." She could not speak, her throat frozen. Her people had always spoken of humans as fragile, weak, unfit for the universe. But she had just seen one face a monster with nothing but his own strength and simple tools. He had fought like no one she had ever seen. The human walked deeper into the cave, setting down his weapon. From a pouch, he pulled out a small container and opened it. A soft blue light glowed inside, clean water. He drank a little, then placed it on the ground between them. The girl stared, her lips dry, her body weak from the burning rain. But her pride held her back. She whispered, Why help me?" The man's face was unreadable in the shadows. He simply said, "Because you'll die if I don't." She looked at him, trying to understand. His voice carried no kindness, but also no cruelty. It was as if survival itself was his only reason. Slowly, her hand reached out, shaking, and she took the container. The water touched her lips, cool and clean. It was the first time since her banishment that she felt life return to her body. The girl lowered the container, her voice soft. "You're human." He nodded once, his eyes narrowing. "And you're not." The cave fell silent again. Outside, the storm raged, and in that moment, Two strangers sat across from each other. One banished, one abandoned. Both trapped on a world where everything wanted them dead. But the girl could not shake what she had seen. Humans were supposed to be weak. Yet this one had fought a monster and lived. As the storm roared outside, she realized something strange. Maybe her people were wrong. Maybe humans were not weak at all. And deep inside, she felt the first spark of something dangerous. Not fear, not anger, but hope. The struggle to survive. The storm lasted all night. The alien girl sat close to the wall of the cave, shivering. The human sat near the entrance, calm, as if storms no longer frightened him. His fire burned bright, small but steady, made from dry bones and strange roots. She watched the flames, her stomach aching with hunger. Her people had banished her with nothing, not even food. Now every breath of this poisoned air reminded her how close death was. The human broke the silence. You won't last long without learning how to survive here. His voice was sharp, not soft, not kind, but true. The girl narrowed her eyes. I did not ask for your help. The human looked at her, his face unreadable. No one asked for this world, but it takes you anyway. She fell silent, her pride heavy, but her body weak. The smell of roasted meat filled the cave. The human held a skewer over the fire, a creature's flesh sizzling. The sight made her mouth water, though she tried to hide it. Without a word, he tossed a piece toward her. It landed near her feet, steaming. She hesitated, then picked it up and bit carefully. The taste was bitter, but her hunger silenced her pride. For the first time, she felt warmth spread through her body. She glanced at him, confused. Why share food with a stranger, an enemy, a myth? But the human did not explain. He only ate in silence, as if this was simply the way of things. The next morning, the storm cleared. The world outside was gray and broken, filled with jagged rocks and pools of green water. Strange plants swayed in the toxic wind, their leaves sharp like blades. The human stood, tying his strange tools to his belt. He looked at her. If you want to live, follow me. She almost refused, but when she stepped outside, the air burned her lungs again. She had no choice. She followed him. The human moved with purpose. He knew which stones would crumble, which plants were deadly. He avoided glowing pools, where unseen creatures lurked beneath. Every step he took seemed like knowledge carved from years of pain. The girl tried to keep up, but the ground cut her bare feet. She stumbled, falling against a sharp rock, blood running down her leg. The human stopped, his eyes cold. You slow down, you die. Her anger flared. Then leave me. But instead of leaving, he crouched down, pulling a strip of cloth from his belt. Without a word, he tied it around her wound, tight and firm. The pain made her gasp, but the bleeding stopped. She looked at him in silence, confused again. Why did he help if he cared so little? They walked further until a shadow crossed the sky. The girl froze, her body stiff. Above them, a winged beast circled, its eyes glowing bright. The human grabbed her arm, pulling her under a cliff. Don't move, he whispered. The creature swooped low, its wings tearing the air. It screamed, sharp and cruel. The girl's heart raced, but the human pressed a hand against her shoulder, steadying her. The beast circled again, then flew away into the storm clouds. When it was gone, she looked at him. You knew it would not see us here. He nodded once. It only hunts what moves. She stared at him, her thoughts heavy. How had he survived here for so long? Her people, with all their weapons and technology, would have perished in days. Yet this human walked as if the world itself had taught him its secrets. As the day passed, they reached a strange valley. Black trees grew in twisted shapes, their roots glowing faint blue. The human touched one of the roots, and a soft light spread across the ground. He pointed. Water flows below here. Drink where the light is strongest. The girl knelt, pressing her lips to the glowing water. It was fresh, clean, and cool. She gasped, her body alive again. She whispered, You know this world? The human's eyes darkened, his voice low. I've been trapped here longer than you can imagine." The girl wanted to ask more, but before she could, the ground shook. A massive creature crawled from the valley shadows, its body armored like stone. Its mouth open wide, showing rows of jagged teeth. The human pushed her back, raising his weapon. The beast charged, roaring like thunder. The girl screamed, but the human moved fast. He dodged the first strike, slashing at its leg. The creature stumbled, but swung its tail, throwing him against the rocks. He groaned, blood on his face, but forced himself up again. He shouted, "Climb! Get high!" She ran up the roots of a twisted tree, her hands gripping tight. From above, she watched as the human fought alone. Every strike he made was precise, every dodge narrow. But the beast was huge, its strength overwhelming. At last, he drove his weapon deep into its eye. The beast shrieked, shaking the earth, before collapsing into the valley floor. The girl climbed down, her legs trembling. She rushed to him, kneeling by his side. His face was pale, blood dripping from his shoulder. She pressed her hands against the wound, her voice shaking. "You will die if you fight like this." But the human only gave a small, tired smile. "That's the only way anyone lives here." She looked at him, her heart pounding. Her people had called humans weak, but she had never seen such strength. Not the strength of weapons, but the strength to fight on when death was certain. And in that moment, she felt something she had never felt before. A strange, dangerous respect. Night returned, and the storm outside howled like a wounded beast. The human sat by the fire, silent, his eyes fixed on the flames. The alien girl sat across from him, her back pressed against the cold cave wall. She watched him, wondering who he really was. He had fought monsters like it was nothing, walked through poison storms as if they were normal. But his silence was heavier than the storm. He spoke only when needed, and even then, his words were sharp, short like blades. At last, she broke the silence. "You are not afraid of this world." His eyes flicked toward her, then back to the fire. "I was afraid once," he said softly, "but fear dies when it has nowhere left to hide." The flames cracked, throwing shadows across the cave walls. The girl hugged her knees, her voice trembling. "My people sent me here to die. They said I betrayed them, but I didn't." Her voice grew sharp, bitter. "They never listened, never cared. They only wanted someone to blame." The human listened, but did not speak. For a moment she thought he had ignored her, but then he whispered, "People fear what they don't understand. It's easier to cast someone out than to face their own weakness." She looked at him, startled by his words. "How do you know this?" He did not answer right away, his jaw tightening. Finally, he pulled something from his belt, a small object wrapped in cloth. He placed it near the fire, and when the cloth fell away, the girl gasped. It was not a weapon, not food, not a tool. It was a photograph, old and torn, the edges burned. It showed faces, a group of humans smiling, standing together. The girl's eyes widened. You were not alone." The human's hand closed over the photo, his voice low. "Once, there were many of us stranded here by accident. We built, we fought, we survived together." He paused, his eyes dark. "But this world does not forgive." The girl leaned forward, whispering, "What happened to them?" The human stared at the flames for a long time. One by one, the firelight reflected in his eyes. "They died. Storms, beasts, hunger. This place takes everything piece by piece." His hand tightened on the photo until his knuckles turned white. "I buried the last of them years ago." The girl's chest ached, her anger fading into sorrow. For the first time, she saw the human not as a fighter, but as someone carrying endless grief. His strength came not from power, but from pain. She whispered, "Then why stay alive? Why keep fighting?" The human lifted his head, his eyes sharp again. "Because if I give up, then this place wins. And I will not let it." The words struck her like a blade. Her people had power, armies, ships, yet they gave up on her so easily. But this human, stranded and broken, refused to surrender. She stared at him, her thoughts racing. Was this the secret of humans? That they never let go, even when everything was lost. The storm outside grew louder, shaking the cave walls. The human stood, grabbing a piece of stone and carving lines into the floor. She watched as strange shapes formed. Maps, marks, paths. You should know this, he said, if you plan to stay alive. He pointed at the drawings. This cave, the valley, the pools, the ruins. I've walked them all. The girl leaned closer, her eyes wide. You made a map of this world. The human nodded. Every scar I carry is a piece of this map. For a moment, she was silent, her hand touching one of the marks. You have turned pain into knowledge, she whispered. The human gave a small, tired smile. That's all survival really is. The fire crackled, their shadows stretching across the walls. The girl felt something stir inside her, something she could not name. She had been cast away, abandoned, but here was someone who had lost everything and still stood strong. Her people had called humans weak, but she now saw the truth. Strength was not in armor or weapons. Strength was in the heart that refused to break. The girl's voice softened. You are not weak. The human looked at her, his eyes unreadable. No, I'm human. And in the silence that followed, she felt a strange bond forming. Two souls torn from their homes, sitting by the same fire. Not friends, not yet, but no longer strangers. The storm outside raged on, but inside the cave, a new storm was rising. A storm of questions, of truths yet to be revealed. The bond grows. The fire had burned low, leaving only glowing embers. The alien girl lay awake, staring at the cave roof. She could still hear the human's words echoing in her mind. I'm human. It was strange, 3 simple words, yet they carried a weight she did not understand. When morning came, the human moved quickly, packing his tools. He handed her a sharpened bone tied to a stick. It was small, crude, but it was a weapon. You'll need this, he said, his voice flat. The girl frowned, holding it awkwardly. I've never used anything like this. He glanced at her, then learned fast. They left the cave together, stepping into the poisoned air. The world was gray and broken, but for the first time, she did not feel completely alone. The human walked ahead, his movements sharp, purposeful. She followed, clutching her weapon tight. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It felt like waiting. Hours passed before they found food. The human spotted small, lizard-like creatures crawling over the rocks. He crouched low, signaling her to circle around. Her heart pounded. She had never hunted, never killed. Her people had always relied on machines to do the dirty work. But here, machines meant nothing. Here, survival was in her hands. She stepped closer, gripping the weapon. The lizard's head turned, its eyes glowing. It hissed and lunged at her, faster than she expected. She screamed and swung wildly, missing. The creature leapt again, but before it reached her, a sharp rock flew through the air. It struck the lizard, snapping its body against the ground. The human stood behind her, his arm lowered, his eyes steady. You hesitate, you die, he said. The girl's hands trembled, her pride burning. I tried. The human nodded once. And next time, you'll do better. Together, they roasted the lizard over a small fire. The girl ate in silence, her mind restless. Every mistake she made reminded her of her people's words. Weak, useless, unwanted. But the human's tone was different, sharp but not cruel. He did not look at her as a failure, only as someone who had to keep trying. Later that day, the storm clouds rolled in again. The air grew heavy and the ground shook. The human stopped, raising his hand. Something was wrong. From the shadows, a predator appeared, tall, thin, its skin black like tar. Its eyes glowed red, its long claws dragging against the rocks. The girl froze, her body stiff. The human whispered, "Stay behind me." The beast hissed, then charged. The human swung his weapon, striking its arm. But the beast was fast, faster than the others. It knocked him down, its claws tearing across his shoulder. blood sprayed, and he groaned in pain. The girl screamed, her heart racing. The beast lunged again, its mouth opening wide. Something inside her snapped. She raised her crude weapon and ran forward. With a desperate cry, she drove the sharp bone into the creature's neck. The beast shrieked, thrashing wildly. Her arms shook, but she pushed deeper until the monster fell, twitching, then went still. The cave of silence returned, broken only by her heavy breathing. The girl stood trembling, staring at the dead beast. Her hands were covered in black blood, her chest heaving. She dropped the weapon, stumbling backward. Her eyes darted to the human, who was struggling to his feet, his shoulder bleeding. "You saved me," he said, his voice rough. The girl's chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, to say it was luck, but the truth was clear. For the first time, she had fought and won. Not for herself, but for him. She rushed to his side, tearing a strip of cloth from her clothes. Her hand shook as she pressed it against his wound. He hissed in pain, but did not push her away. Instead, he looked at her with something different in his eyes. Not suspicion, not distance, but respect. The girl whispered, her voice unsteady. "My people cast me aside because they said I was weak, but you gave me a chance to fight." The human met her gaze, silent. At last, he said, "Weakness isn't in failing. It's in refusing to stand again." The words struck her deeper than any blade. She tied the cloth tighter, her hands steadying. In that moment, she understood. This bond was not built on kindness, not on pity. It was built on fire, on blood, on the will to keep going. That night, as they sat by the fire again, the girl stared at the flames. She realized she no longer felt like a prisoner of this world, because now she was not alone. She whispered to herself, barely louder than the crackling fire, Maybe I can be strong too." The human, though silent, glanced at her from across the fire. For the first time, there was no wall between them. No banished girl, no lost human, only survivors. And the bond that was forming was stronger than either of them had expected. The choice. The valley grew darker as they walked. Twisted trees leaned over broken stone, their roots wrapping around ruins half buried in the earth. The girl's eyes widened as she saw carvings on the walls, strange symbols glowing faint blue. She touched one with her fingers, and the stone hummed softly, alive with ancient power. The human's face was grim, his jaw tight. "You feel it too," he muttered, his voice low. The girl nodded. "This is not natural. This is old." They moved deeper until they reached a great arch of black stone. In the center, a shimmering light spun like liquid glass. The girl's breath caught, a portal. Her heart raced, tears burning her eyes. This could take her home, away from the storms, away from the poisoned air, away from this cursed world. She stepped forward, but the human's hand shot out, grabbing her arm. "Wait," he said sharply. She turned, her voice trembling. "Don't you see? This is my way back." His eyes burned as he shook his head. "You think it's that simple? This world is full of traps. That portal might lead anywhere or nowhere." The girl hesitated, staring at the swirling light. Her people had thrown her away like broken glass, but still, it was her world, her blood, her family. Her voice cracked. "If there's even a chance, I have to try." The human's hand lowered, his eyes shadowed. "You go back, and you leave me here." The words hit her harder than the storm winds. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. He was right. The portal was her escape, but not his. If she stepped through, he would remain, fighting alone, until the world swallowed him too. Silence stretched between them, heavy and painful. She looked at him, the man who had saved her, fed her, taught her, fought beside her. The man who had shown her what strength really was. Her chest tightened, her mind torn in two. She whispered, why don't you come with me?" The human's jaw clenched, his eyes turning to the portal. "I've seen these ruins before. They're not built for me. They won't let me through." His voice carried no doubt, only certainty. The girl's throat closed, her body shaking. "That's not fair," she whispered. "You don't deserve this." The human gave a small, sad smile. "Fair has nothing to do with survival." Before she could answer, the ruins trembled. The ground shook, and from the shadows crawled creatures, guardians of the portal, twisted forms of stone and fire. Their eyes glowed like burning coals, their limbs sharp as blades. The girl gasped, stumbling back. The human grabbed his weapon, his voice hard. "They won't let you leave without a price." The beasts lunged, and the cave exploded into chaos. The human struck first, his weapon slashing through stone skin, sparks flying. The girl fought too, her crude spear striking one in the chest, the force shaking her arms. But more came, their claws tearing at the ground, their screeches echoing through the ruins. The human was fast, but there were too many. One of the beasts slammed him against the wall, his weapon clattering to the ground. He groaned, blood dripping from his mouth. The girl screamed, rushing to him. She picked up his weapon, swinging wildly. Her strikes were clumsy, but fierce, driven by fire. The beasts fell back, but only for a moment, circling again. The human forced himself up, his voice sharp and urgent. "Go, now, while you still can." Her heart broke at his words. She shouted, "No, I won't leave you here." The portal shimmered behind them, glowing brighter as the ruins shook. It was open, waiting, calling to her. Tears filled her eyes as she turned to him. "You fought for me when no one else would. You believed I could survive. How can I walk away from that?" The human's breath was heavy, his body weak, but his eyes were fire. "Because you're not meant to die here. You still have a chance to live." The guardians screeched again, their claws scraping stone. The portal pulsed, brighter, louder, almost alive. The girl's chest ached, torn between the world that had betrayed her and the human who had saved her. Between the past she could never escape and the future she had never imagined. Her voice cracked, desperate. "Then come with me anyway, even if it kills us both." The human looked at her for a long, silent moment. In his eyes, she saw something she had not expected. Not fear, not sorrow, but pride. "Maybe," he whispered, "you're more human than you think." Before she could answer, the beasts lunged again. The human pushed her hard, forcing her toward the portal. She stumbled, her body falling into the shimmering light. The last thing she saw was him standing tall, weapon raised, facing the storm of enemies alone. And then the light swallowed her whole. Humans are special. The girl fell through the light. Her body struck hard ground, and she gasped. The portal vanished behind her, leaving only silence. The air was different, clean, sharp, familiar. She was home. She pushed herself up, her eyes wide. The great hall stretched before her once more. The same people who had cast her out now stood frozen, their faces pale with shock. They had not expected her to return, not from the cursed world. Whispers spread through the crowd. "Impossible. No one survives there. It cannot be." The girl's chest rose and fell as she stared at them. Her body bore scars from the storms, burns from the poisoned rain, blood from battles she had fought. She was no longer the girl they had thrown away. She had walked through death itself and returned. One of the leaders stepped forward, his voice trembling. How did you survive?" The girl's lips parted, her voice steady though her heart ached. "I survived because of a human." Gasps rippled through the hall. The leaders exchanged confused, angry looks. "A myth," one muttered, "a lie." But the girl's eyes burned with fire as she shouted, "No, he is real, and stronger than any of you will ever understand." Her people fell silent. She could see doubt in their eyes, fear too. They had always called humans weak, fragile, useless. But she had seen the truth. She had seen one man fight storms, monsters, even death itself. Not with weapons of power, but with will, with spirit, with something they could never crush. Her voice broke, softer now. "He saved me when you abandoned me. He gave me food when I starved. He stood against monsters when I could not. And when the chance came for me to escape, he chose to stay behind." The hall was silent, every ear straining to her words. She raised her head high, her eyes bright with tears. My people call humans weak, but weakness is not in their bodies, it is in our hearts. Humans are strong because they refuse to fall. Even when the world takes everything from them, they keep fighting. That is true strength. That is what I learned. Humans are hope. The hall erupted in whispers, but the girl no longer cared. She had spoken the truth, and no voice could silence it. That night, when the hall was empty, she stood alone, gazing at the stars. Her heart ached with the memory of the human, his sharp eyes, his steady voice, his unbreakable will. She imagined him still standing in that cursed world, weapon in hand, facing the endless storm. Part of her wanted to believe he had fallen, that the monsters had swallowed him. But deep inside she knew better. He was human, and humans did not break so easily. She whispered to the night sky, "If you're still out there, I will not forget you." Far away, on the broken world of storms, lightning split the sky. A lone figure stood among the ruins, bloodied but unbroken. His weapon in his hand, his fire burning bright, his breath heavy, his eyes sharp, his will unshaken. The storm roared, but the human stood tall. For as long as he drew breath, the cursed world had not won.